For a generation, there's always a movie, isn't there, that you think, yeah, this was my generation. I don't know about you, but for my generation, really, it was the sort of action heroes. You know, the Sylvester Stallones, the Bruce Willises, the Arnold Schwarzenegger. They were everywhere. And there were blockbuster movies that everybody had to go and see if you were in school or, further on down the line. It was like, yeah, this is the one. Of course, for somebody like myself, and I know for many chums out there, we all like the world of music. I mean, it's what changes everything. A mood shift, a lift, or whatever you want to call it. And when you hear those songs, it takes you right back, doesn't it? Absolutely, 100%. One song that does that for me is none other than, of course, More Than a Woman by the brilliant band Tavares. I can remember exactly where I was. I was in the school uniform. It came on the radio and I thought, wow, this is a great sound. What's this? That was, of course, my association with the brilliant film that was Saturday Night Fever. But did you know this? As ever, let me explain. Morning chums, lovely to see you. Thank you so much as ever for taking the time out to join me today. Saturday Night Fever and Grease were, in my opinion, musically the defining movies of that generation, because everybody, if you're a teenager, wanted to go see John Travolta play a teenager in the movie Grease with an equally beautiful, but certainly a long way from being a teenager, Olivia Newton-John. They were just great films, weren't they? And just escapism, all of that sort of stuff. Many years down the line, when I remember going to see that in the cinema. I wasn't allowed, right? But when you used to sneak in and the usherette would go into it was the era of the twin screens, remember? So when she went into the other one, you snuck in the other one, which you weren't allowed to go and see. And I just felt so sorry for the usherettes, thinking about it now, trying to keep unruly school kids, at bay. Saturday Night Fever, I genuinely never got to see until I was older because it was that strict to get into. It made a star, of course, of John Travolta and really created the white suit and the black shirt that everybody wanted to copy. Every advert, every single branding before branding came around, everybody copied that look, didn't they? And there was nothing wrong with it. It was terrific. John Travolta was the man everybody wanted to be. But it was the soundtrack, wasn't it, also to Saturday Night Fever? When you think about it, beautifully put together by many different people, but predominantly the brilliant Bee Gees. I've met all the Bee Gees and they were just lovely. And the thing what I liked about them was the fact that, brothers clearly in harmony together, but like all brothers have their moments of falling out, but realised what they made together was terrific. It wasn't just Saturday Night Fever though, was it, chumps? No, they went on to great albums like Spirits Having Flown, and just all of the other things, the music that they did. I often wonder if they realised just how talented they were. The falsetto voice of Barry Gibb, wonderful. But John Travolta, who I was lucky enough to meet on a number of occasions, we had a lot of conversations about his career because people forget it shot up and then very quickly it shot down, particularly after the movie, I think it was called Perfect, with Jamie Lee Curtis. But I also met the boss behind Saturday Night Fever. He was, I think, an Australian entrepreneur, movie mogul, whatever you want to call him, Robert Stigwood. And I was fascinated by Robert Stigwood because not only was he a mogul of the highest order, but also he was, he had his own record label. He seemed to have a finger in every single pie and he knew all the movements seemingly ahead of the time. Very, very charismatic man, Robert Stigwood. But listening back to the interviews, and it's fascinating when you do this, because you forget these bombshells. At the time he was promoting a book and, all that sort of stuff. And he said he was really struggling to get the money for Saturday Night Fever. He came on board, suggested the Bee Gees, all of that. We know that history. But he said the bigger bucks certainly weren't coming their way. Nobody believed at the studio that a movie about disco dancing could take off in such a way. The studio bosses decided that the way to get sort of interest in this was to get cameos inside the movie. And they went to many different people, including the legendary Mae West. I know, but she was too busy writing her own scripts and stuff like that. They were looking around at the hit teen sensations of the moment and thought, well, would they do it? Would they do it? Etc. But no, not many people wanted to. One idea that Robert hit upon was to see if he could get a cameo from none other Kennedy Jr. And the thing was, you have to remember just how gorgeous, charismatic and hip Robert Kennedy Jr. was, The thing is, he was the epicenter of everything that was happening at that point. He was still a young guy, but consequently, very, very shall we say, nurtured at this point. People didn't know really what direction he was going to go in. And I asked Robert in the interview, well, what happened? And he said Robert was really keen. He'd never really heard of John Travolta, although knew of the TV series Welcome Back, Kotter. But he said no, he didn't really know, but he liked the idea of simply popping up. Apparently, though, it was his mother, it's always mums, right, who said no. She didn't think the subject matter was the right thing. And all they wanted him to do was be in a bar scene inside the disco, the nightclub. But apparently Jacqueline said, no, it's not so. Maybe later on when he's a little bit older. But Stigwood didn't give up. And of course he went back with quite a few other ideas. But sadly for him, by that point, Robert was now in the stratosphere and seemingly didn't like the idea of being a cameo in anybody else's film. As ever, thank you for taking the time out to enjoy that nostalgia story. And if you can, please like, share and comment respectfully. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.